Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 9th of December 2013. So in today's news we have the coming of patch 5.4.2, the NSA, which should be great fun, some very interesting numbers and analysis from MMO Champion, and then finally a roundup of the blue tweets. So 5.4.2, it will be applied during the next maintenance downtime, and what it brings is really not that much in terms of content. We will be able to use the new cross-realm group finder and send account-bound mail, things like heirlooms and that sort of thing to alts and other realms. Now, one thing about the cross-realm group finder, it's kind of important people know this. It's not the thing that Blizzard announced they would do in BlizzCon. It's really just that they saw our current group finder. It's a bit shit, but at least it can be usable to some people. But the problem is there was never really enough people signed onto it because, well, it was just in one realm, so they've added cross-realm functionality to that. The thing coming in Warlords of Draenor is essentially going to be an expanded version of OQ, which should be quite fantastic, I think. So yeah, there's that. Then the account-bound mail, it's really just a quality of life thing, and I think that's nice if you want to start off in another realm. Good example, like for me, I won't have the time to do this, but I kind of would like to start a Horde PvP character somewhere, and I just wouldn't be able to do that. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do that and level it quickly if I couldn't mail over some heirlooms, so that's really nice. Now, there was no word on Karazhan. Of course, there had been a little bit of tinkering, where in the PTR they removed some cobwebs and things like that. So that was okay, but really, nothing happened. The cobwebs and stuff were eventually added back into Karazhan on the PTR, and it went through a number of different names, like Karazhan 2 Electric Boogaloo, Medivh's Big Birthday Bash, just general sort of piss takes and stuff. Really, that was initially, I don't know what it is. I mean, there was some decent speculation with the whole Coronal Spire on Draenor being like an equivalent to Karazhan and being the entryway to get there. I think it's more probably likely that they were just working on Karazhan, and maybe that's why it showed up in the PTR. That said, it doesn't make any sense to me why they would put this on the PTR, though. Like, it seems like it was nearly just done to dick around with data miners. So yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on there. Now, there's also some work done on the store. This is the in-game store. I don't actually, I don't know, I don't see it on my UI, but apparently some American people have been seeing, a skeleton store sitting in their UI. That's weird to me, but anyway, it was worked on a little bit on the PTR. They added in categories for pets, mounts, and that sort of thing, but we are not actually going to know if this is live until the patch hits. Blizzard haven't talked about any, payment integration or any, of the kind of website end of things, so to me it nearly seems unlikely this is going to happen completely without an announcement. So yeah, I'd imagine this in-game store is just going to continue being a little PTR thing. However, don't be surprised if you log on tomorrow, and, well, tomorrow for the Americans, and realize that you can now buy mounts in-game. That's certainly possible. Now, the next story is about the NSA. And the NSA have, of course, been snooping on a lot of online systems, things like Xbox Live, Second Life, World of Warcraft. I'd say Second Life probably back when it was relevant, but I guess now that it's not really, that big anymore, maybe all the terrorists and shit could use that. But, yeah, they were basically just snooping into World of Warcraft, and they were trying to essentially just infiltrate some groups that would be using that as a way to chat. The article I was reading on VG27 was saying things like snooping on entities like Chinese hackers, Iranian nuclear scientists, Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, basically all those bastards. So, yeah, I mean, this should not come as a surprise to anyone. If there is an online thing, then there are agencies monitoring them. They are monitoring absolutely everything, and I don't want to sound like the crazy person, but that's just true. If you take things like companies like Microsoft, Google, they've all had the fiber between their data centers and shit has all been tapped by the NSA. Essentially, everything you've done could probably be dug up by these guys. Not that would ever happen because they have such a giant wealth of data. I was reading a thing recently that one of the NSA's problems is they were getting so much data that they couldn't process it, which of course makes complete sense because they're snooping on just about fucking everyone. So yeah, that's great. UK, fuck you. America, fuck you. And let's move on to some more news. Well, UK, by the way, the GH whatever sister agency, they have also done lots of snooping, but I think the NSA are really the biggest bastards of the lot. Anyway, let's move on to some other things. MMO Champion has had some great analysis, some numbers and things like that. They took 5.5 million characters on 2 million different accounts, and this is after November of the 1st, the characters that were active. past that date. Now it shows the level of the item level of characters, and they scale down the all characters category, so it's a little bit easier to compare the two lines. I'll throw this up on the screen, but overall it's, well, I mean, it's interesting, but it is expected. If we're going to talk about averages, I'd say like the kind of average range for mains is 510 to 525, so probably around 517 being the actual average, and then for alts being 490 to 510, I'd say then 500 is the kind of average. The median is actually, yeah, it's probably a little bit, I don't know, you can't really find the median in this graph because, like, every single different point of the graph has got, like, 30,000 characters on it. But, yeah, I mean, whatever, this is fair enough. It makes complete sense to me. What we do find is a lot of characters, it kind of starts to pick up after 460, so I guess anyone who is playing an alt, it will be higher than 460 in terms of its item level, which is fine. We see a little bit of a bump, actually, a rather significant bump at about 563, which is kind of cool. I suppose, I guess that's just the high-end raiders kicking in. And on their sample at item level 581, they had a grand total of 3 characters, so whoever that person is, they play a lot of this game, don't they? Anyway, just some numbers. I thought it was kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, whatever. They're numbers. They're exactly what we expected. Let's move on to the blue tweets. Then we'll round off the show. So, this is all from Ghostcrawler. Essentially just the kind of final spew of things before he leaves. There is some new things from Celestine, but, well, I woke up at 5 PM today and I don't have time to do a full, like, big research thing before the show. So we just have to go with what was readily available online. Now, class changes. First of all, they said that they moved away from specs being a bespoke PvP or PvE sort of deal. I don't really know what I think about this, actually. Right now, any spec can sort of do anything. Yeah, pretty much. In terms of PvE or PvP, and that's fine. It means that players do have a lot of choice, but I think that it makes some sort of gameplay and design sort of issues, maybe sacrifices, I suppose. If a spec is completely made for PvP, then what that means is it doesn't need to have PvE balance. They can balance it for PvP and PvP only. Oh, it's annoying having to say PvP all the time, but anyway, essentially it just means they can balance each spec for what the spec will be doing, which I suppose theoretically would make better PvP and better PvE for everyone. And it would be better for class balance and overall just make the game a lot better, I guess. So why they went with this method of just sort of watering down every class so it can do every job, I'm not particularly sure. I guess player freedom is one thing, but, like, just, I don't know, if like PvP players, which is really not me. What do you think about the idea of having specs just be bespoke for PvP, which would mean that probably they'd have, I'd say, better control of crowd control, and diminishing returns, just the way all that sort of works would make more sense for those specs. You wouldn't have weird abilities which have some effects against players and some effects against like just normal mobs. So yeah, let me know what you think about that, but overall I think it's a bit of an interesting design decision. Ghostcrawler did say he didn't really have a problem with either method, but honestly I don't think they're ever going to go back to a spec having a specific, I suppose, gameplay role, because, well, they went this far, right? They can't just go back, can they? Now next, they said that overall class balance is great, and some examples are, like, they say there's no Burning Crusade Paladins, which I suppose were not great fun. This is a good thing. Really, classes are definitely more homogenized, and things like that are definitely true, and the Burning Crusade level of class design where classes were extremely unique, however not balanced, I think overall the current way of things is just better for the game. If you were, like, say, a class and maybe the spec you wanted was just completely irrelevant in, say, the Burning Crusade, you couldn't play it. You need to roll up an alt. And I suppose that's great for some people, but it's a bit of a kick in the teeth for others. So overall, I think that really we're going in a good direction at the minute. I just wish... I don't know what I wish. Yeah, so anyway, he also talked about some stuff about being very cautious when removing abilities, and they cited that when they changed the talent system in Mists of Pandaria, they actually lost some players because they didn't like the new system. Now, personally, I think the new system, it definitely has its pluses and its minuses, but overall, I'm happy enough with it. Anyway, in Warlords of Draenor, they basically said that they're being very careful about removing abilities because they don't want to just remove 20% of the abilities in the game and then have a mass exodus of players who are completely pissed off. That that wouldn't be good, right? So what I think is going to happen is, sure, they'll remove some abilities. It'll be on a class-by-class basis, and it will only be done where it makes sense, where it's just that button that pisses you off every time you have to hit it, because there's no real gameplay involved in that. Those kind of buttons will probably be gone. Things like, say, abilities that are just fun, but don't really get bound to your bars, like Eye of the Beast for Hunters. I'm pretty sure they said that they wouldn't be removing those because it was really just removing flavor, and it didn't really affect the problem of there's too many things on your action bars. So one of the things we've noticed in Warlords of Draenor is that in terms of getting new abilities, new talents and that sort of thing, well, instead of getting new buttons, we're essentially just getting augments to our existing abilities rather than adding a new button. I think this is the best way to do things, and by, I suppose, augmenting things we already have, they can still have that interesting feeling of getting new things and getting more powerful, but still have the game balanced. Another thing with these level 100 talents is, some of them have really, far-reaching consequences with the class, and I think that's extremely cool, and it's far more interesting than just giving one kind of cool new ability. So, yeah, overall I think they're going in a very good direction with this. Also, ghostcrawlers said that Transmog needs a better UI. I agree with this, and I think that with the expansions collection system being expanded upon, I'd say Warlords of Draenor will probably achieve this. Perhaps not at launch, but definitely eventually. So, yeah, that's good. I think they are planning something where you can store gear, I think. I don't know if it's going to hit launch, but I'm pretty sure that's one thing they said at BlizzCon that they were planning. And then finally they said they do not want to put things like neon circles around the fire in raids, so that players can easily see where, not to stand. And I actually agree with this, because what Ghostcrawler said is, by just adding in these UI elements and things like that, it's taking away from the world. And it's, in a sense, making the UI play the game for you. Now, this actually harkens way, way back to an add-on that was in Wrath of the Lich King, where people could actually... Right, everyone would have the add-on, and you could paint an area of the floor with the add-on, and then for everyone else that had this add-on, the thing would appear painted on their floor. So this would mean that people could essentially just, I think, what was the boss? It was Professor Putricide. It was just ridiculously easy to coordinate, because you'd have one guy who was just paint a blob on the floor, everyone stand on the blob. And what that meant is that it was just the UI playing the game. Now this is certainly, this whole idea of just having the fire being surrounded by a neon circle indicating what area will deal damage to you. While that does sound convenient, I think that it is just a little bit too far in terms of the UI playing the game for you. Now that, of course, doesn't mean that the idea is without merit. It is with merit, actually. Often Blizzard don't do the best job of having spell effects effectively communicating where the damage would be dealt and things like that. So I think what needs to happen is that there's no neon lights or anything like that, but spell effects need to be very easily visible and not drowned out by the other things that go on. And they also need to really properly correlate with the region that deals damage. These are problems that have just been a pain in the arse for a long time. Things like, for a good example, Duramu before he was patched. That was annoying. Even Duramu after he was patched, when you were moving to the right in the melee track, it was very hard sometimes to see if you could advance or not without getting hurt. It just was a bad mechanic. Well, no, it was a fun mechanic, but it was made bad because of the annoying spell effects. So yeah, that's the sort of thing that Blizzard needs to fix. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Thank you for watching, and thank you to the NSA for slipping in as well. You guys are appreciated. And yeah, if you like the show, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.